If you run a UniFi network in a home lab or small environment, there's a point where you start wanting more than just basic status pages. You want to understand how your network behaves over time, what's normal, what's changing, and what actually correlates to the issues you're seeing. That kind of visibility is something that enterprises rely on every day. And one of the best things about a home lab is it lets you learn and use those same tools in a practical, low-risk way. In this video, we're going to build that kind of observability for a UniFi network using Unpoller, Prometheus, and Grafana. We'll get Unpoller running to collect metrics from access points, switches, clients, gateways, and more, and then make all of that data available in Grafana. Everything I cover here is repeatable and freely available, so you can copy and paste this setup and run it yourself and adapt it to your own home lab. My goal is to take the guesswork out of getting this observability stack up and running, while also giving you hands-on experience with tooling that translates well beyond a home environment. Before we start configuring anything, let me quickly walk through how the data flows, because that makes the rest of the setup much easier to follow. So on the left, we have our UniFi devices. That's access points, switches, gateways, and clients. Unpoller sits between UniFi and the rest of the stack. It connects to the UniFi API and pulls metrics from those devices and exposes them in a format that Prometheus understands. Now, Prometheus scrapes and stores those metrics over time, which gives us real historical data instead of just a snapshot. Grafana is what we use to visualize that data, dashboards, charts, and trends that let us actually understand what the network is doing. So Unpoller collects, Prometheus stores, and Grafana visualizes. Now, with that mental model in place, let's actually get this deployed. I'm using a single Docker Compose stack that brings everything up together. This includes Unpoller, Prometheus, Grafana, and one optional helper container. The idea here is that this stack is already wired together and ready to run, so you're not assembling this piece by piece. Starting with Prometheus, this is where all of our metrics are stored. So I'm mounting a configuration directory and I'm mounting a data directory so metrics persist across restarts. I'm also explicitly setting a UID and a GID so that Prometheus can write data without permission issues. Next is Grafana, and this is where we'll actually visualize everything. So it's running as the same user for consistency, and I'm mounting a data directory along with a couple of provisioning folders for data sources and dashboard. This lets Grafana load everything up automatically on startup, so no manual imports and no clicking through the UI. Unpoller is what connects to the UniFi controller and exposes metrics to Prometheus to scrape. All of its configuration lives inside of an environment variable, which keeps credentials and connection details out of the compose file. It exposes 9130, which is the endpoint Prometheus scrapes. You'll also see Dozzle in this stack. This one is optional, but it's very useful during setup if you want a quick web view of container logs. If something isn't working, this is often the fastest way to see why. All of these containers run as the same user as the host, and because of that, Docker can create the bind-mounted folders automatically. If something isn't behaving, like data not persisting, the first thing to check is directory ownership. I'm not going to walk through every variable in the Unpoller environment variable file, but the only things you need to change are the URL to your UniFi controller, username that you'll create, a password that you'll also create, and the site name, which is typically default. To do that, you'll need to create a user in UniFi that Unpoller can authenticate as. This is just a standard UniFi account. It doesn't need full admin access. A local user with read-only permissions to the network controller is enough for scraping metrics. Now, I'm not going to walk through every click here, but this is where you want to create the account. And once the account exists, you just plug those credentials into the Unpoller environment file. Now, you'll also see that Verify SSL is disabled here, which is pretty common for most controllers because most of the controller certificates are self-signed. Also, Unpoller exposes metrics on port 9130, so this just needs to line up with Prometheus. And if authentication fails, this is usually the first place to double check. So on the Prometheus side, there's one scrape job that really matters, and it's the Unpoller job. So this tells Prometheus to scrape metrics from Unpoller on 9130. Because this is using a Docker Compose service name, there's no IP management needed. You can use Unpoller right there. And if you ever see empty dashboards, this is the first place to check. Once everything is configured, we can start the stack with a simple Docker Compose up-D. That brings everything up in the background. Now, it usually takes a minute or two for metrics to start flowing. One quick sanity check you could do is opening Prometheus on port 9090 and looking for Unpoller metrics. If Prometheus can see Unpoller, then the data pipeline is working. Now let's open Grafana on port 3000. Now, because everything is provisioned, there's nothing to import or configure manually. Grafana already knows about Prometheus, and the dashboard should already be there. If you take a peek, in here, you'll see them right under dashboards. Now, I like starting with the access point dashboard. This gives me immediate visibility into client counts, radio utilization, and activity across 2.4, 5 gigahertz, and 6 gigahertz networks. What makes this really powerful is that you're not limited to one snapshot. You can look at trends over time. If I was trying to track something down that happened in the last 30 minutes, I can set this to the last 30 minutes. Or if I wanted to see some changes that I applied a week ago had any impact on my network, I can set the dropdown to 7 days ago and inspect from there. Another dashboard I like looking at is my UniFi switch dashboard. This gives me lots of metrics about my switch, again, not only right now, but over time. You can see I had a fairly large data transfer here going for a little bit, 70, 80 megabytes per second. And not only was it transmitted, it looks like something on the other side was receiving it, so this most likely was traffic between two machines. I can also see individual port information too. If I wanted to see my Flex Mini 2 port 5, you could see all of the traffic for this as well. And if you have a PoE switch, it will even pull in the voltage, the current, and the power that it's drawing over time too, which is really cool to see. Another one of my favorite dashboards is the UniFi client, which will give you data on every single network device within your network. Here I can see how many clients are using which channels, I can see which radio they're actually using, and I can see a breakdown of the device types within my environment. Another cool thing you can do is group devices together. So I grouped all of my Apple devices here so I can see what they're doing at a glance. Another thing you could do is group all of your cameras together. So from here, I can see all of my cameras and how much bandwidth they're using and how much they're transferring. Really cool to see over time. One more thing that helps me troubleshoot wireless with these visualization is client anomalies. You can see here that there is an anomaly, and it's my downstairs AirThings View Plus. This device just so happens to be running out of batteries, so maybe that's why I'm getting all of these anomalies, I assumed errors. So something to look into. Now, I don't want to click through every dashboard and show you every panel, but the goal here is to show you the kinds of questions you can answer with this type of data. At this point, you've got a working observability stack for your UniFi network. You're collecting metrics, you're storing them over time, and visualizing them in a way that's actually useful. And you're doing this with the same style of tooling used in much larger environments. From here, you can customize dashboards, add alerts, or just let it run and build some history. So hopefully this takes a lot of guesswork out of getting started. I hope you enjoyed this video on the awesome tool Unpoller. I'm Tim. Thanks for watching.